What are the things that I can do to get them from stage 1 into stage 2 successfully? But it keeps us in relationship with these people. It allows us to keep adding value to them. No matter how good you are at producing your product or your service, you're going to have attrition. People are going to leave you. You think, oh, I knew or I'd heard about 3 out of the 5, but are you doing them?
Maui Mastermind presents the Business Coach Podcast, answering your questions and providing real actionable insights for building a better, stronger, more profitable business without sacrificing your time, life, or freedom anymore.
Well, welcome to another episode of The Business Coach. In this week's episode, I want to share with you 5 little-known sales systems to increase your company's profits and to do that easy and fast. And so we're going to go through these 5 different systems. How can we increase sales, and all things being equal, by increasing our volume, we do our collections right, we produce our product or service the right way, deliver it the right way, we're going to increase profitability handsomely from that. And that's the focus of this week's podcast. And so the first thing I want to share with you is one little-known system. We call it a reactivation offer. A reactivation offer. So you think about it. If you've been in business for a while, and you likely have, how many people who have been customers of yours at one point or another have kind of wandered away? And I'll share an example. One of the clients that we work with today, his name's Rob. And so Rob was a customer of ours about 15-ish years ago. And for whatever reason, he was a client of ours for about 2 years, then he wandered away. And then about 4 or 5 years later, because we do these formalized reactivation campaigns, we reached out to him, and lo and behold, he became a client again. And we helped him scale his service business, and he ended up selling it for 8 figures, did a great job, right? So he's still a client to this day, 9 years later with that. So there was a gap in between with that. So reactivation, this is really important. So if you've got a long track record of having worked with lots of customers and or clients over time, you can't help but have attrition. No matter how good you are at producing your product or your service, you're going to have attrition. People are going to leave you. A formalized reactivation campaign says, at the core says, how do we put together a list of those people who used to do business with us but left for one reason or another, and how do we reach out to them with some kind of compelling offer to get them back in touch with us to take us up on that. Now, better is to retain, we'll talk about that later, but a formalized reactivation campaign, one of the manufacturers that we coached, a guy by the name of Chad, he did this for his glass business. He reactivated 2 customers off of one. All he did is he pulled an old customer list, gave it to one of his salespeople and said, hey, I want you to follow up and ask these people how they're doing, just to touch base and check in with them, tell them we were thinking about them. He didn't even give them a special script. He didn't have a special offer for them, none of that. He just had a list. They called through, reactivated 2 of the customers, $80,000 of sales, and it took them about 3 hours to generate $80,000 worth of revenue in terms of from a sales perspective. It was a no-brainer, a no-brainer. Most businesses are scared of doing that. Why? Well, David, they left us for a reason, right? And chances are most people who leave your business, if you do it reasonably well, they didn't leave you for some horrible reason. Just life got in the way. Think of how many businesses you used to go, restaurants you used to go to, services you used to use, products that you used to buy that for whatever reason you just stopped using them. And if that company reached out to you in a coordinated way, half of the time, a quarter of the time, 10% of the time, you would probably repurchase. Think about that. Even if it's only 1 out of 10, if you've worked with in the past and you have 1,000 customers, that means by going after those 1,000 past customers to reactivate them at 10%, that's 100 customers. Your cost to reactivate is incredibly cheap relative to your cost to find a customer and make that first sale. So reactivation is a big deal. Now, a couple ways to go about that. For example, can you create some kind of program that when someone leaves your product or service, can you have something that they can go down to? Like, I'll give an example. When we have a coaching client who leaves us, I know, horror of horrors, sometimes they do. Our goal is to keep them forever, to give so much value that they'll stay a coaching client for 10 years or more. But it happens, clients leave for a variety of reasons. But if they do leave, we have an alumni program that for a nominal amount, that's usually in our world about 5 cents on the dollar of coaching fees. Sometimes it's a little bit more than that, but roughly 5 cents on the dollar. they still have access to some of the great tools and things that we do that are constantly being refreshed and created new. And so there's real value for them. They have access ongoing to our coaching app, which allows them to manage their team and to do their action plans each quarter and their quarterly reviews and their weekly accountability reports with their team. So there's some good stuff that they do. By doing that, though, we have an alternative reason for that. It's not the revenue from that really matters to us. It's nominal, but it keeps us in relationship with these people. It allows us to keep adding value to them so that at various points in time, when that client or former client's ready, and we reach out to them in such a way that they're now, we hit them at the right time, they come back to us. And it's quite common that a client who was a client, I'm thinking of a woman, Debbie, she has a real estate business. We worked with her close to 11 years ago for about a year. And she had some results with that part, but she just wasn't quite ready at that point in time. Well, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, she started working with us again, and she's had amazing results, right? She's more than 10x her profitability in that 3 to 4 year period in her real estate business. So that relationship over time, don't be afraid to go after reactivating old people. So that's the old customers that you're keeping in touch with on a more of a programmatic, systematized way. Here's the next one. The next one is a gateway offer. This is something that most business owners don't even know the concept. I'm going to share it with you, and when I do, it's going to go, David, aha, why didn't you tell me this a decade ago? To which I'd answer, well, I wasn't doing the podcast a decade ago. Why didn't you read one of the books I wrote it in there? But we'll leave that aside. A gateway offer is for you to strategically think about what's the best first sale with a particular marketplace, that if a customer makes this first purchase of a product or service from you, it leads to the best long-term outcome for the customer and for you, both. So a gateway offer might be, for example, let's say that you have a business that you're an accounting firm. Your gateway offer for you might be for you to do monthly write-up work for them, or a monthly close and tie down of someone else's balance sheet. Or maybe you specialize in tax. So for you, your gateway offer might be a book about tax strategy, or it might be about a free tax strategy consult, or maybe it's a $495 tax strategy session, which you guarantee that you'll find at least 10x the amount of tax savings for a customer that you're going through it with, right? So what's that first sale that leads to the best relationship for both sides down the road? Generally for us in our business, it would be a book. That's the best first thing. So if someone picks up a copy of Scale, or the Freedom Formula, or Build a Business, Not a Job, or Grow Your Medical Practice, those are books that I've written that if they do that first step with it, they get so much value from the book that many of them will now come into relationship. Now, do we make a lot of money from the book? No. And everything we make goes back into the marketing and promotion of those books. If someone buys a book on Amazon, it might be $9.95 or $12.95. They buy it in a bookstore, it might be $22 in a bookstore. They buy the Audible version for $10, $8, whatever it is for sale. I think they change their prices and they fluctuate based on their algorithm. But my point being, that for us is our gateway. So thinking about that strategically. One of the HR service companies that we work with, their gateway offer was an HR manual, an employee handbook, basically. They would do that for $500 for mid-sized companies with over 100 employees. That $500 sale would lead in many cases to consulting and benefits management and HR services that would lead to monthly retainer contracts and anywhere from the $2,000 to $5,000 a month range for these businesses. But it started with that first way for you to give value. So give some thought. And the gateway offer might be different for different market niches that you work with. It could be different for different service lines, but usually it's the market niche or the service line or product line that really determines that. Third little known one, this is one of my favorites. We call it makeup offers. So no, I'm not talking about cosmetics, although we have coached several cosmetic businesses. I'm talking about a makeup offer. Imagine you just screwed up. And you need to do a mea culpa. You need to take responsibility with the client and say to her, hey, I messed up. Our business didn't deliver what we promised. We would like to make it right for you. A makeup offer is something that you can train your staff and say, look, if we ever make a mistake or screw up, here's 2 or 3 off-the-shelf things that you can offer to make the situation better for them that leads into actually another purchase. For example, a makeup offer. Let's say, for example, you have an engineering company, and you can say to the person, look, we did make a mistake here on this part. We're 3 weeks behind delivering on this part. Here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to make this up to you. It's too late to, of course we're going to fix it on this problem here right now, but we'd like to have on your next time you hire our firm, we'd like to give you 15% reduction on stage 1 for the engineering work. It's assuming that you do 2 or 3 different stages of work, right? Or something, 5% reduction on the next job that we do for you. That's an example of a makeup offer. In our business, what have we done before? We've done things like saying, look, normally this workshop is $10,000 per person coming. We'll let you attend this workshop for $1,000, right? The $1,000 more than covers our cost of goods sold for the workshop, and if they have a great experience, it's going to retain them as a client. So a makeup offer says, we screwed up, here's what I want to offer to you, but that offer is such that they get great value from it, and it leads into the next purchase for you, right? It's the restaurant that says on your next meal you're going to get free dessert the next time you come in. And what you want to do is to think about that not on the moment, but in advance, to come up with the 1, 2, possibly 3, but all you typically need are 2 makeup offers that are on the shelf that you can train your staff on, that can not only take someone who's feeling upset and make them happy to upgrade the situation, but to do it in a way that keeps the customer purchasing from you. It's called a makeup offer. The next one here are what I call retention strategies. The easiest way to increase revenue is to combat attrition. Keep your people from leaving you. So regardless of the business that you have, if I can make sure that I can retain these people, you can have the most boring, mundane business. You could be a dentist. I'm laughing because I have a good friend here locally, Veldon, who's a dentist, and he might take exception to me calling dentistry boring. Because, David, there's some real intricacies there. But let's pretend it's boring for just a moment. So reactivation for a dental group might be going back to people who haven't come in for a dental cleaning for a while. Hey, Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Jones asked me to call you up to make sure that we talk with you. We haven't seen you now for over a year, and there's been some new studies that have come out that have linked low-grade oral infection with heart disease. And so Dr. Jones thought it would be very important for me to get you scheduled to come in for your next teeth cleaning. What's better, this week or next week? By the way, that little spiel I just gave you, one of our dental clients used that in her 2 dental offices, and they generated over $100,000 of long-term revenue just from that little call campaign. A big, big deal. But going back to this part with retention strategies, the best way that a dentist retains their patients, besides doing good work, is when I leave their office, before I leave, they schedule my next appointment. Whether it's in 6 months or in 6 years, they want it on the books. A lot of the dermatology groups we use do the same thing. Hey, David, as you leave here today, Mr. Finkel, let's get you set up for your next annual skin cancer screening before you leave. And that's a great retention strategy. When you think about retention, the best way to do this is to ask yourself, if I look at my client life cycle, why do I lose clients? Like, what are the biggest drop points where I lose clients? And usually in a business, I can find the 1, 2, maybe 3 places where I lose the most clients, and I pick one of them this quarter and I say, how do I close the drain that I'm losing clients from? How do I bridge over that so that I don't have that going on? For example, if you lose most of your clients, let's say you do a service where, like that engineering firm, you tend to do phase 1, which is you do initial kind of concept work for them. Phase 2 is you do the formal engineering work, and then stage 3 is you're actually in the trenches doing the implementation of that. Let's say that from stage 1 to stage 2, for every 100 businesses that come in stage 1, only 12 go to stage 2. That's where I'm losing them. I should put really my best talent, creativity, and attention. How do I bridge that gap with that part? How can I precondition them to go to stage 2? How do I count the money towards stage 1 as a credit towards stage 2? What are the things that I can do to get them from stage 1 into stage 2 successfully? That's an example of using a retention strategy. In our world, what we've determined or learned about for us is the first 60 days that a client's a client, we have to put extraordinary amounts of energy there. And we front load essentially the first 4 months of energy. Why? Because if we can get a client cleanly into coaching with us and do a great job of not just delivering on our promises, but over-delivering on our promises, and help that client get a quick result, that they either get a result that generates profitability for them more than their coaching fees within the first 90 days, within the first 180 days, we're going to keep them for a client forever. That's our best retention strategy. We talk about delivering felt value. So we have to deliver value, help them make an extra 100 grand, but we also have to help point out to them so that they can see, to make the value they received visible. Sometimes a client will have an idea that we've shared with them, help them implement, mean an extra $500,000 of profit this year. But down the road they forget about that, so we have to bring it up at certain times, and then we have to make sure we continue to give more value. That's an example of retention strategy. For you, it might be a well-timed gift that you send to somebody. It might be making sure that at a certain point in time you have more contact with an account management strategy. But retaining your best customers, your clients, is a little-known way to increase revenue. Everyone wants to get the new customer. The new customer is expensive. You have massive sales commissions that you're paying for new customers typically. Retaining customers is cheap. They tend to be people who are easier to work with, and they're lower cost because you don't have any kind of sales cost to that, generally speaking. Sometimes you do with account managers, but an account manager cost is always less, or 99% of the time less, than a brand new customer coming in. The final one is probably my favorite, referral strategies. I look at how we bring clients into Maui Mastermind in our coaching service. I'll tell you our second most common way we bring people in, referral strategies. If you were to come to one of our workshops that we do for coaching clients every quarter, one of the things we'd say, if you had a great experience here at this event, as you're doing the feedback form, we'd love for you to share Maui Mastermind with one or two other business owners that you know who, like you, want to grow their company and get their lives back. And we'll reach out to them and get them a copy of Scale or Build a Business, Not a Job, or if they're really ready, we'll invite them to be a guest for one of our future events so they can try out the community. So as you're doing that feedback form, if you could just write down their name and their phone number or their email, we'll reach out to them and do our very best to give them value first, right? That's an example of one of our formalized referral strategies. Now I need to talk for a moment. The key word there was formalized. I can't tell you the number of coaching clients we've had who I've asked and said, what do you do about referrals? And they say, a lot of our business comes to us from, quote, word of mouth, close quote. Whenever I hear someone say word of mouth, I know what they're saying is passive referrals that come into them. I'm talking about actively formal referral systems. For example, we worked coaching a driving school years ago that taught teenagers how to drive safely. And I introduced to them the concept of doing the following formalized referral strategy called the Safe Driver Circle. And it works like this. Mrs. Jones, we've really enjoyed working with little Susie to help her be a safer driver. She did great, by the way. Now, we believe the whole mission of what we do is so that teenagers can learn to drive safely for themselves and for other people. Now, little Susie had a great experience. Let me just ask you, though, who are her closest 3 or 4 friends that she is closest to? Because odds are she's going to be driving with one of these friends, whether she's the driver or they're the driver. Who are they? Okay, it's this person, this person, this person, this person. Here's what I've got. I want you to give to each of them this following envelope. It's I know you paid, I don't remember the pricing, for you it was $900 for little Susie to get trained. Well, we're going to go ahead and give to them the ability $100 off their child getting trained for that part from that part. And by the way, any of them that do that, we'll do an extra session for Susie so that she can be safer, and we'll do a refresher session with her, right? Because it's not just little Susie in the car, she's going to be a passenger of one of these other people's cars. And we can create a safe driver circle, a safety net, if you will, by doing that. Right? A simple little referral strategy like that. One of the medical practices we work with had a GI business. Well, if you go in for a colonoscopy, you have to have somebody else take you there because when you're done, you don't feel like driving and you can't do it safely. So they created a friends and family plan that said, look, Mr. Jones, I noticed you brought your wife in for a colonoscopy. It's wonderful. May I just ask you, We really take our mission of finding early stage cancers and precancers in the colon seriously. When's the last time you had a colonoscopy? Well, you haven't done one. Okay. Well, we would like to get you scheduled somewhere in the next 3 to 6 months. Can we have you schedule that now, right? By doing that, they were able to take, and they might see, a doctor might do 30 colonoscopies, 40 colonoscopies in a day if they're really efficient. Well, think about that. If they can pick up 5 or 10 more for future, the cost for that is so low. They were bringing in, a significant amount of their business from that friends and family plan that to this day still works and produces for them. So formalized referral systems. In your business, how are you using your client relationships to generate more client relationships? Here's how it might work in a construction or blue collar service business. This guy we know had a company. They did mostly residential work on the upper end, but these people whose homes that they did this work on, they also worked in businesses. Well, we started talking to them about the commercial work that they do. It came because one of the people who was a customer said to this guy, said, "Hey, you guys did such a good job on my house. Gosh, could you do the same thing for my business?" And they said, "Well, yes, we definitely want to get into commercial work." And so he started doing that commercial work. And now he can now formally ask when he does somebody, "What is it that you do?" Now, if they say to them, they say, I work as an accountant for KMPG or some other accounting firm, not a great one, but they say, I work with a construction company, or I work with a property management company, or I work with a real estate firm. Now we can take the next step to see how else might that be a possibility. So going back through these little known ways, one, reactivation. Who are the people who used to do business with you, and how can you get them to do business with you again? Just gather those names, make phone calls. Don't just do an email. That's lazy, an email. It gets filtered out. I mean, depending on how much people pay for your product or service, at least do a direct mail piece, actual physical mail. Sometimes old things become fresh and new again. Second from that part for you was a makeup offer. Third was retention for you. Fourth was gateway offers. And then finally for you was the referral systems that you had, number 5. I called these little known sales systems because while when I explain them to you, you think, oh, I knew or had heard about 3 out of the 5, but are you doing them? As your coach, I'm not going to ask you what you know. What you know is irrelevant. What are you acting on? What are you putting into place? And so pick one of these 5. Don't do all 5, too many. Pick one of these 5, whether it be formalized referral strategies or reactivation offers or retention strategies, whatever they are, pick one. And over the course of the next 90 days, implement that one idea reasonably well. And you will make a handsome profit from doing that. Thank you for joining me on The Business Coach, and I wish you the very best in your business. Bye-bye.